All right, you might want to know why I ended up in Pennsylvania. All right, first off, my father was from Pennsylvania, from Vanling. It's up north. It's a coal mining town, and it got strip mined, so there is no coal left there. And they took the mountains down because they had coal in them. And I used to go there with my family, and we had relatives up near there. And we would stop in my dad's hometown every year and visit Jesse and Andy. And I think they were in the area of Simpson, Van Link Simpson line. And I worked with a guy that was just up the street. I worked with him in New Jersey. I'd go visit him after our company closed down. I'd stop and see him. Now you can see there's a metric patch there. Now that's a covered bridge tour. It's a 60-mile tour. It's a metric run. It's a metric century. So anyway, I did it in 1978, and there were only 80 of us. Now that thing is a giant ride. People come from all over the country to ride it. You have to get your name on a list, and then they pick so many people, and then send you I guess, the paperwork. All right. If you go there now, they leave from four different places. The ride got bigger and bigger and bigger. But I remember I rode in 1978. There was only like 80 of us, and I think we started at Smoketown School. So I came here and did a ride. I used to also come out to that fish place, which is called That Pet Place now. At the time, a guy had a ad in the back of the Tropical Fish magazine, and he had the lowest prices. So I used to drive all the way from New Jersey, 3 hour ride all the way out, and it was like a little ice cream store. That's the size of the building, and you go in there, and it was packed. And he had a fish that he was raising in the back room. He would sell. He had live bait. He had all the equipment you needed, real cheap. So everything was so cheap, I could actually buy it all up. I still had money left over to go to Burger King, and it would pay for the gas to come all the way out here. So every few months, I'd come out here and get my supplies for my tropical fish tank. So seeing my family from Pennsylvania and being around them, and my dad talking about Pennsylvania, I thought it was going to be okay. I got a German last name, but that's not how it really works. When you come out here in Lancaster, there are locals that were raised here, and they don't want any outsiders. They don't want anything to change. And they could tell right away I'm from New Jersey, just the way I talk. And they have an accent that I can hear, so I know they can say I don't have an accent. They can tell I sound different than they do. So it's just not having an accent is the same as having an accent to them. And it took a while. And what I did was I sat down and I started figuring this out. I'm like, okay, I'll go around and I'll find all the outsiders like myself and start hanging out with them and form a network. And then after a while, the locals are like asking me questions like, what does that guy do for a living? Go ask him. Go ask him. They gave me a hard time. And then after you're here a while, everybody gets to know you, and that problem goes away. But when you first get here, people, even when you're in the store, you'll be saying something, they'll go, oh, you're from New Jersey. That has stopped because this area has gotten more progressive. There's more people here now from somewhere else since I've been here. I'm here 17 years, and there's a lot of housing developments that, unfortunately, they took down cornfields and put these housing developments, just like they did in South Jersey. They ruined South Jersey, the farming area, and put crappy houses up. Anyway, that's what this is like. And somebody mentioned, how did the big Swede know I was from New Jersey? They just know. They know their accent, and they know how Jersey people talk faster. They have it. They know it. They think you're from Jersey. You're from. Once in a while, they'll think I'm from New York. They don't like New Yorkers either. And there's a lot of New Yorkers out here that moved out here, came out to see the Amish, and that drove around and said, it might be nice to retire out here. So you have a lot of people from New York, Brooklyn, and that. When you walk around and talk to them, that retired here. And the locals, there's less and less of them every year. Well, let's put that. They die off. And but I actually know some of them, and they'll actually say they'll tell me how the area changed, and it did that in Jersey too. My mother used to talk about the farms. My mother's house was across the river from my house when she grew up, and she would tell me where there were different farms. It's hard to imagine farms when you go over and see Belleville now. And Belleville became a very famous wire company, and they just eliminated the farms and put up giant factory buildings and made wire. And that's when you're over there walking around, you're like you. There was, I think, Plock over towards Nutley out that back way by Clifton. Plock was there's a actually it was a farm. Actually a nursery, and there was one last farm left, but all the farms had been turned into housing developments or something, and that's how this is going. And the locals don't like it. So when they figure out you're from Jersey, they make a comment to you, you know. But I did the Century ride back in 1978, and now it's much bigger. And we started, I believe, from Smoketown Elementary School up on Old Philadelphia Pike. That's where we started. And every time you got to a covered bridge, you had to walk the bike through because a covered bridge has a wooden floor, and there's slots between the wood pieces. You know, the car tire won't go through it, but your bicycle tire could get stuck in there, and you could bend the rim of your wheel. But I did it. I came out all the way out here, and it's talking 3 hour ride. Then you ride this ride, and it's a metric 100, so it's 60 something miles, something like that. And you get up, take the bike apart, put it back in the car, and then drive all the way back to New Jersey in bumper to bumper traffic because it's later in the day. So, I saw this area. My dad was from Pennsylvania. He told me all these stories. And I moved out here, and it was nothing like I expected. All right. Uh, One of the days, I was just out for a walk, and I stopped to talk to this old guy that was having trouble with his ear. And he was very nice. We were talking. Well, these other guys come out from hunting. They had guns. And they said, well, who are you? I said, I was just walking by. I stopped to talk to the guy, you know. And he had gone in, and they were like, and that turned out I knew the guy's sister. She's over by me, and he told me they'll never accept you here. You'll never fit in. Blah blah blah. And that was the first person that actually said it to me to my face. And then other people, same thing. And then I might have told you once before. I went to a dentist here, and I figured out if you were a person that goes to dental college and you come back, they shun you. The people here become jealous of you when you get an education. The locals. So when you go to school and you come back, they treat you different. Now, I'm talking to the nurse, and then the doctor hears me. He comes in, he tells me the whole story. He goes, I went away to become a dentist, and when I come back, my friends wouldn't talk to me. And I said, I sort of figured that. You start little by little, you notice certain things, but you work around it. And they're in their own little world. The locals are in their own little world. It's all changed around them. And when you go out in the farms, they're Amish. They're real nice. And what I do is I talk to the Amish people, and then they have to deal with the locals. You think about this: the Amish have been here longer than the locals, but and the locals don't like the Amish. They're always in our way they're always in the way of my car with their damn uh, carts and their push bikes and their buggies, and I'm like, they were here first. William Penn invited them here. Were you invited here? It's a different world. It's very cheap, and there are people when you bump into them. Like I told you, I met that girl in the Dollar Tree, and we're talking about the Cheez-Its, and she's from D.C., which is Washington D.C., the capital. And I asked her about it. She says, yeah. She says, so laughing. Anybody that's from somewhere else, you mentioned the locals. And when they first got here, they got the same reception. And then after a while, if you're smart enough, you figure out, well, that guy's not from here. You talk to him, and then he goes, that guy over there is from over New York. That guy over there is from New York State. That person over there is from Delaware. And then you go over and you hang out with those people, and you form your own network. And then you have a few locals on the block, and they start wondering what you're talking about. And I was kind of mean if I saw a person out watering their lawn, but actually they don't water their lawn, they're out puttering around their house, and the guy was mean to me, what I'll do is I'll actually, when I'm talking, I'm sort of point over in his direction with my finger and really rile them up. But yeah, when you come out here, it's going to be different than you expect. Now, if you come out here as a tourist, you're gonna interface with everybody that wants to sell you something. So you're gonna think they're real friendly, and they're real friendly until you buy a house here, and then all of a sudden they're different. Okay, and I kept thinking they're gonna be like my dad's family, which were very friendly, but they were my relatives. Think about that. So I was biased in the direction of them being nicer, but they don't want change, and I don't either. You know, now that I'm here 17 years, and they take a cornfield down. That bothers me because they're closing in on my house. See, I bought on the sprawl line thinking I could flip this house, and I really could. It's doubled in price in 17 years. But where am I going to go? You know, that part of it didn't work out. Further out, there's no buses. There's no stores. You know, see, I'm right here in near the Miracle Mile. I have 3 shopping malls that I can walk to, and a Walmart. You know, but yeah, someone said I was telling the story, and the person mentioned that when they listen to me, they don't hear an accent. Well, educated people that listen to the radio, watch television, your speech pattern is based on television and radio. Where if you come out here, a lot of them don't watch. They don't watch television out here. A lot of them, and they don't listen to the radio, so they have a local accent. And when you come here, they know right away you're not from here. And that one guy, that big Swede, you know, shut up and listen. It was like, holy shit. But you know, you actually fit in after a while, sorta. All right. But when you talk to people that move here from somewhere else, especially the people coming up from Delaware and California, there's people that just getting the hell out of the states are in. The people from Jersey are coming here to do shopping. There's no taxes on the things you buy here. So you got people from Jersey, Delaware, Maryland. I think there might be one more state. New York State? Yeah, New York State. Jersey, right? Anyway, when you walk the highway on Saturday, people come from all over to shop here. And then at some point, they drive the back roads, and then they go, this would be a nice place to live. And that's what built this place up. And the locals, they had their houses were, when they tell you the stories, there was like an eighth of a mile between each farm or more. I always say eighth of a mile. It's one of my favorite distances. But yeah, they'll tell me, oh, it was over here and that's not there. And when they start telling you that used to be there, I feel their pain. Because Dutch Wonderland used to have a wax museum and a movie theater. That's gone. All right, so I've watched things disappear since I got here. Now, the Dutch Wonderland building, that was the museum, and they knocked it down. They made it more parking lot for Dutch Wonderland, and you have to pay to park, and you never did before because Hershey bought it, and then Hershey sold it to another company, which is out of Florida, the one with Namu, the whale. And yeah, it's just this is a tourist area, and but it's very convenient for me not having a car. I can walk anywhere. You know, it's less than a mile to go to Walmart. Back cut throughs through fields and stuff. There's paths. People use the shortcuts. I go to Walmart. I can get almost anything I want. Anything else I order online, have it delivered. But we don't have like a hardware store here anymore. You know, you have to go to a Harbor Freight for certain things. And I have on the other side of town, I have a Lowe's, and I used to walk there all the time when I first bought the house. And that's over an hour to get there on foot and back and carry back whatever I buy. I haven't been over there in a long time now. I'm getting too old, but I bought this in this area based on it being like I saw it as a senior citizen area. I walk down to the corner, I get the bus, I can go anywhere. I go down in Lancaster City and get the hub, go to the hub, get on any bus, and go out in the spoke. There's spokes, they call them pikes. but they radiate out of the Lancaster city, and I just call them spokes. They're roads, but they call them pikes. And you go down into the hub, and you can get on a bus. And I'm a senior; I ride for free. And then you go out to where you want to go. We still have a Radio Shack. It's privately owned. It's out on New Holland Pike, somewhere out that way. And it's interesting here. It's cheap. It's very cheap here. And the locals, they don't have great jobs. So that's why it's so cheap here, because the money system is based on lower wages. And that's why when somebody comes from New York, they have more money. They don't like that. And it's just weird. And there's a lot of churches here. When I first got here, the mailbox used to load up with Bibles, but none of them put a card in and said, please come to service on Sunday. No, they just put a Bible in the mailbox. All right? And I consider that arrogant. You don't know what religion I am, and you're putting a Bible in my mailbox, and you're not leaving a letter on it. And then it kept happening. I went down to Flory Park. There was a woman walking her dog. I started talking. I said, I moved here and I'm getting all these Bibles. And she says, I moved here from Poland. I said, oh, here we go. So she says, they're rude here. She went through the whole thing. I was like, holy mackerel. She says, they don't know how to talk to you correctly. They don't. And all right. So then I started sitting down and thinking, well, how am I gonna work around this? And after a while, you do sort of fit in. If you just stay nice to everybody, after a while, they just, once in a while, they if you say something to them, they don't really like it. They'll go, well, you're from Jersey. It's just, but that's what you're running up against. And when you come out here and go to the produce stations, the Amish sell like vegetables and stuff out on the roadside. They'll be real friendly to you, but they don't want you here. That's what you have to understand. And you'll go, well, we went out there. They're very nice people. That's because you're handing them money. The moment you want to move here, they have a different attitude. Now we have out 30 somewhere. I actually really don't know a lot of the area when you get further out, because if I haven't walked there, I really don't know. But we have really large senior citizen, it's not centers, but villages. And people come from all around the United States because it's cheaper to stay at one of those senior centers. And we don't have hot weather out here. We have four real seasons here. And it does get hot and humid during the summer. And then, you got your fall and your spring, just like New Jersey. It's very nice here. The weather's a little more mild than Jersey. We don't get those nor'easter storms that that come up the coast and used to hit me in New Jersey really bad and cause flooding, and that's different here. And in here, they do the drainage correctly. So when it rains really heavy, you get very little flooding. There's very few areas that flood out. There's very few underpasses that flood out because they really designed everything. And the people in the town, when you call them up, they care. They come out. In New Jersey, the girl on the phone tried to get me to fix it myself. And one time I said, "There's water coming up out of the road in front of my house." And she says, "No, it's just a stream." I said, "No," I said, "there's water coming up out of And that was the first water break on the street. And then, all right, so she hangs up on me. I hang up on her in New Jersey. And the next day, the street sweeper came up and it collapsed. The street collapsed, and the street sweeper's now inside a giant hole, a sinkhole. And I'm standing there, and I said, I called about this. This guy's looking at me. You got to be kidding. I said, no, I called. The water was shooting up out of it. He says, there's a broken water main under here. I said, I told the girl the water was coming up through the street. She told me it was a stream. So I had to get a tow truck, a big heavy tow truck, to lift the street sweeper out of the hole. I don't know if it got damaged. But after that, I started getting meaner with the people from the town to make them do their job. Here, they're real nice. As soon as it snows, because I'm near the Miracle Mile, I'm 1 block from the Miracle Mile. That has to be open at all time. That's what makes our taxes. So my street's like one of the first ones that get plowed. And that's just where it's like my town in New Jersey, my street was the last one to be plowed. It was a dead end. Here, it's a U up around the different complexes, and they're right here. And I know the guy, Mark, Troy. I know the guys that snowplow. It's so much better. And in New Jersey, I knew some of the guys from the town, but they were real snotty to me. It's better here with certain people, but the real old locals that've been here for since the beginning, uh, they can be trouble. And like I said, I was at a cemetery. It was a Quaker cemetery, and the guy was a big Swede. I don't know if he was a Quaker, but he was huge, and he had these big arms and an attitude and that big long shovel. And I think they just put the woman in the hole. They didn't build a they didn't dig a trench where you put a coffin in. She was in a bag, and they just lowered her into the hole. And then I went back there, and then told Vicky to tell Blank that what happened. He was getting real suspicious, and because his family's been here since the beginning of time, and he's like, that cemetery's been there, yeah, like 300 years, and it's a Quaker cemetery. And he's like, why would they be digging in there? And I'm like, well, I think maybe they're burying somebody. I just went over and asked, and sure enough, they were. And one of the firemen from town is now in that cemetery, in amongst other people. Those people are over so many 100 years old. They just dig a hole. Maybe they start at grave number 1, and then they just dig along and put other people in there. Yeah, but that's what that was. I was telling you that's right, and that's probably the weirdest thing that ever happened to me since I've been here. And I tell you, all this stuff happens to me because I get involved. If you stay in your house, none of this stuff's going to happen to you. And it's when you interface with other types of people. And I have people here. I might have told you real quick. There's 2 Chinese girls. They're from China. They come over when they're 9 years old. One of them lives around the corner from me. She has a twin sister that's a nurse at Lancaster General Hospital, Vicky. And I know her. I know the dog, Wong Wong. He has since passed. I know them. And Vicky's married to an Amish guy that didn't join, but he was raised Amish. And he drives a milk truck. So I know them because they visited the twin sister. The twin sister she stays at home and takes care of her mom, and was her mom and dad. And dad passed on. I knew him. He's Chinese. And I would hang out with him. Wong Wong used to always bark at me, and I always used to tell him I love him. But I met Vicky through Abby. I'm under the gun being on the video. Abby and Vicky. And so when I was in the hospital, I thought I heard Vicky, and I went, Vicky, and she come in, took care of me, man. She talked to all the nurses. Yeah, but her last name is Wu, but she's married to an Amish guy, and his name's Fisher. And I have all those kinds of friends. When I walk around, they're not from here. They're from somewhere else. They're from Delaware, New York State, New York. People that sold me the house, they're from Brooklyn. And then after they moved to a place they rented, they didn't like it. They moved back here. They bought another house. They're 2 doors over from me. The people that sold me my house here lived 2 doors from me, and they bought it. It was an abandoned at the time. And the bank fixed it up, and they moved in. But yeah, they sold me the house. They're right over there. I go over and I shovel for them. I help them out. They helped me out. They left me everything they could leave me in this house. They left me curtains. And they didn't leave me a lawnmower. They left me hedge clippers, and they left me an inflatable bed. They really helped me out. Because, when you buy a house, you got to buy all this stuff. And then back then, I don't know if they still do it. They left me the appliances, the stove, the dryer, the washer. So when I moved in here, I didn't have to spend a lot of money. I was back up and running, and I wasn't on Social Security yet. And everybody's like, you're crazy. And then I went for Social Security, and I got on it. And they gave me a hard time. They didn't believe I was as old as I said I was. But it was a weird trip. And then I finally got there. And it's still weird stuff happens. That's why I do the videos. I sort of tell you some other stuff. But why this weird stuff happens to me is I go out of the house. I go for a walk. I'll stop and talk to people. Now, yesterday, I walked 1 mile. It took 4 hours. And you say, what? Yeah. Every time I walk 300-400 feet, somebody would see me and want to talk to me. And then it's so funny. I got over by Walmart, and I'm walking along, and the guy's laughing. He's looking at me laughing. He's an old guy. He was Amish when he was younger, and he lives on my street here. And I haven't seen him. I ask people, and they go, "We don't know who you're talking about," because they don't. They don't know their own neighbors. So I start talking to him, and then I'm telling him they're putting a trail through the park, but this area curves. Everything curves in Pennsylvania. So it's very hard for someone to understand when they put a road in where it's going to go in and where it's going to come out. And I went over with him. Then he started asking me about this one neighbor. I told him all the stories. And he's like, "You're kidding." I go, no, that's what's going on. Yeah, I was taking somebody else's garbage. He starts shaking his head. No way. I said, yeah, I took garbage for 2 different people because they said they couldn't pay. And at some point, I had well, what happened is one of the guys could pay again, and then one person's mowing his lawn and helping him out, and then he's taking the other guy's garbage. It did sort of work out, but the four of them can't remember what day to put the garbage out. I was involved with stuff, but I have to stop doing that. You know, I told you a woman prayed over me. I was walking with a woman over at the Oaks, and she's telling me her problems, and I said, "Let me tell you something I have going on." And she prayed over me because they're very religious here. And she says, "You got to learn boundaries." I said, "Well, I was raised a certain way, Episcopal, and I put the other person first if I know them, and then after they're taken care of, then I worry about myself." We're here, you know. It's rule number one is take care of number one. Rule number two is obey rule number one. So yeah, but it's totally different than you expect in Pennsylvania. It's totally different than I expected. I had been to Pennsylvania many times with my parents, and then that fish place. I know this area here, and doing the bicycle rides. You know, when you're doing a bicycle ride, the people from Pennsylvania, the most friendliest people in Pennsylvania are going to be on a bike ride. So you're bike riding with these people, and they're real nice to you and friendly. And then you move to Pennsylvania and find out, oh, you're from New Jersey. Yeah, the first guys that razzed me really bad were holding guns. They just come back from hunting, and they were like good old boys. And then blah blah blah. I started talking, and then all of a sudden I knew the guy's sister, and she lived on my street. And he sort of backed down on his rhetoric towards me when I said I knew his sister. And he's, you know, she's married to, yeah, I mentioned the guy's name. Yeah, that's my sister. And then I said, and I pointed to her. I said, "You see that house there?" She said she lived in that house. He goes, "How do you know that?" I said, "I was talking to her about walking." And then one day she says, "You know that house over there? It looks like a schoolhouse. I think it's on Hobson. Looks like a schoolhouse." But that's the house they grew up in. And this guy was telling me he used to shoot from his upstairs window and shoot groundhogs in the field. Everything's farms. And he didn't realize the spray from his shotgun was nicking the cable TV wire across the street. He knocked everybody's cable out. Yeah, I could tell you stories, but these people are still alive, and I don't want any problems. But you know, all you got to do is go out of your house and go for a walk, and then you'll make eye contact with someone your age, and then you probably that's how it starts. And then like you say like, "Hi, how you doing?" And then you could say something like, "It's going to rain later." Uh, I told you, I think on one of my videos, that was the greeting here. We went through such a period of where it kept raining, but not a lot, just enough to be annoying. Instead of saying, "Good morning, how you doing?" you would say, "It's going to rain later." All right, that's how funny it got last summer. It's going to rain later. That was the greeting. And it did. After 12 o'clock noon, the way the pattern was going, it would start to rain. But I just want to tell you, you know, I had my opinion or my beliefs of what I was going to see when I moved here. And because when I was coming out here to that fish place and do the ride, I was just around everybody. It was friendly. And then with my parents, they were friendly. And then I moved here, and they don't like people from New Jersey because they have more money. They think different. We were more progressive than they are. And we think education is real important. And I told you that both the nurse and my dentist told me that when they went away. And I asked different people, and yep, you go away, you come back with an education, and they're jealous of you. And I'm like, oh no. I go, yeah, you got to watch what you say to these people. And I figured I'd tell you, just in case, you come out here and you're shopping. Boy, these people are nice. This is really nice. Rolling hills. I want to tell you, you can get up at certain heights on a road, and you look in the distance, and all you see are rolling hills and Amish farms and the barns and all this stuff. And then you stop at a roadside stand, and they're real friendly. And then you're like, this would be a nice place to retire. But they don't want you here. They don't want you here. Hey, that's the funny thing. I'll meet people in a parking lot at the dollar store. I walk across diagonally, and I'll see a Jersey plate. And I'll start talking to them. And a lot of them are from South Jersey. And that's really Eastern Pennsylvania, the way people think. And I'll say to them, they just laugh. They go, "Yeah, we've been out here at times. Yeah, everybody's friendly here as long as you're handing them money." They figured it all out. But I call it a hamster cage because I don't have a car, and you really have to drive a long distance before you get out of the way it is. In other words, it's farms. And if you look at where I am in Lancaster, you'll see Lancaster's a hub, and you'll see these roads coming out from Lancaster, and they're pikes. And they have a bus system. You go down to the city, and you get on a bus, and you go out the pike, and they might have a quarry in one spot, a wood mill, not a wood mill, a sawmill place, and those are there. They also have fertilizer companies that store fertilizer for the farms, and yet other areas have shopping malls, and it's different. It's like you have both worlds. I go out for a walk, 3 blocks. If I go up the highway and in behind Starbucks, back in there, that's all Amish. See, I can't go behind my backyard through the houses because Flory Park's back there, and there's the Mill Creek's there, so you'd have to cross the creek. But if you go a different way, you go over the top of the creek, and then you're in farms. And you go up the other way. You go across 30 the other way, maybe a quarter mile. You're in farms, and you rarely see them out there. Now, when I used to do a lot of walking, I would see the Amish, and they would talk to me. And a lot of them knew they had this guy Philippe, and Philippe used to drive them around, and he'd point me out to them. So I'd be out 10 miles from my house, and these people were told, "That's John. He walks everywhere," because they've seen me, and then Philippe knows me. And anyway, I'd go 10 miles out, and I walk up on an Amish guy, and I'm talking to him. And I like to ask people different kinds of questions. He's just smiling. He goes, "Do you know Philippe?" I'm like, "Well, there goes that idea." But Philippe told him that I walk places and I ask people certain questions. See, I wanted to really understand the Amish versus what's in a book, and it's different. There's no one kind of Amish. They're like a cult. There's different groups, and they have a different pastor or minister, whatever you want to call him. And they don't sort of have dioceses. Each group has it would be sort of a diocese, and yeah. But then they don't have a church. They have the service in their house, and there's a buggy, not a buggy, a wagon. It's gray. It's got the pews in it, so that wheels up to the house, and men take the pews out. Long benches, and they put them in the house, and then they have the service in the house. Now the Mennonites, the Amish descended from the Mennonites. The Mennonites have churches, and some of the people are very nice here, But you know, they figure oh, Jersey, you got people come here, yeah. And some of them, when you talk to people, they're not from here, and we laugh. We have a good laugh about it. And that girl the other day, she was from Washington D.C. and she noticed right away that people are different here. See, when I was in New Jersey, and someone moved from Pennsylvania into the neighborhood, we'd go over there and shake their hand because a lot of the people on my street were either from Pennsylvania or Newark, or from Pennsylvania through Newark into North Arlington. And we all had relatives that were from Pennsylvania because when the coal mines closed, when they started closing, everybody they left Pennsylvania for greener pastures. And my father did the same thing. And that's what we knew. You go, which part of Pennsylvania from? And then everybody always tells you about the Centralia. It's on fire underneath. And well, my dad was from down from Forest City is Vanling, down a little further, a few blocks is Simpson. And I told you I was on an airplane with a guy going to Florida to work. And he told me he was from Pennsylvania. And I said, yeah, my dad's from Pennsylvania. And he was, what town? I said, Vanling. He goes, I live at Simpson. That's like right down the street. And then he went back to the hotel, called his parents, and his father knew my grandfather in the mines. And yeah, it's funny. And I told you I went to school with Joe Warhol, which is Andy Warhol's second cousin. Warhol shortened his name. The artist shortened his name from Warhol. But he's from Philly, and it's still the same family as from Vanling, Pennsylvania. And I went to school with Andy Warhol's, like probably third cousin. And he used to say, he's dead now, Joe died. Joe would say, isn't it amazing that your father and my father went to school together with each other, and here we are. And yeah, and it just kept going on. So you always have to do is ask, and then you realize it is sort of a small world. But everybody in the North Arlington area basically was from somewhere else. It was very progressive. People moved there. It was very expensive, you know. But I just want to run it over you. What one guy said about me having. I said I have an accent. But let's just say I don't have an accent, and the people that have an accent can pick up on that and know I'm from Jersey because we talk faster than they do, and what we talk about is different than what they talk about. And when I walk with people, or walk and talk and stop and talk, there's things I care about they don't care about. Now, if a new store is moving in, they want to know ahead of time. But I was telling some people down at the park, they're putting in a new trail. They don't care about that. They don't walk in the park. They don't go out of their house. But if it's a new store, they're all ears. So you have to realize that what they want to hear about is different than what I want to hear about. And when I roll up on someone from here, the local, I have information to tell them because I walk up to the guys doing the construction, and they tell me what they're building, how long it's going to take, and then my information is ahead of the newspaper. And they're like, "Well, how do you know all this?" Like, "Well, I stop and ask. I'm out there already." No, they won't ask. And they make stuff up too. I won't go into that. But when you ask some of the locals about something, they just make something up. And then I always fact check and find out that they just made something up. And that's weird too. But anyway, it is what it is. I think that's it. Do I have an accent? I don't know. Fix my scope.